called Women's Veterans on May 14th, unfortunately the same day. We have a gigantic ceremony there with the Hmong and the Hall of Heroes were doing up stones. But we had an amazing thing happen at a Vietnam Veterans type meeting. Vietnam Veterans Chapter 5, one of the most active Vietnam Veterans chapters in the state. And we had members of different clubs and organizations. A World War II veteran needed help. He was totally and permanently disabled, had never applied. County Veteran Service officers never applied for service net disability. He's ready to go to Chupa Veterans Home. And you can't, if you go to the Chupa Veterans Home, any Veterans Home, and you're 70% are disabled or more, it's free. It's free. You get to keep your service net disability check, which could be, what, $3,068.17 a month. You can keep that. He had never applied. We had a Vietnam veteran stand up and take him to the County Veteran Service officer. The County Veteran Service officer, Eau Claire County, dropped everything. Dropped everything. And put them in. I'm convinced you get 100%. And one of the other things that you're going to get is memoirs. Another Vietnam vet was told in September he only had 3 to 6 months left because people praying for him and because of memoirs. And I got a little document about memoirs. Each and every one of us should be writing memoirs. Even kids, about patriotism and why they love this country, what it means to them. So those two handouts will be available. I want everybody to take one. God bless each and every one of you. And I took about 9 minutes. Okay, thank you.
I hope after we get done today that Dave will hang around here a little bit, so will some of these other speakers. Please take a minute out and speak with them. Great dynamic people, as you can see. Been a great program so far. Things going really good. Next, I'd like to bring up Kerm Morgan, Lieutenant Colonel, retired United States Army, and a good friend of mine, and also co-chairman of this committee that helped put this together today. So, thank you, Kerm.
Thank you, Dennis. I always seem to follow Dave's lead. I better be good. Well, today is a big deal. It's a huge big deal for me and for everybody here. And the reason is this. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'll explain it to you. You are in the presence today of two legitimate American heroes. Now, that is not to not recognize many of you who have received high honors in any variety of awards. That's not my point. Today, right in this room, is Elmer Wishart, who in World War II flew in over this interesting body of land called France, Elmer, in D-Day.
Oh my God.
Okay? So if you ever read the books, you're reading about Elmer. So I'll never ever not recognize your heroism, Elmer, as long as I live. Let me move on to another era. Now if I read this whole script on Dan Doughty, I'd exceed Dave's time. So I always refer to as the beard of knowledge. But I'm going to read you a couple things about Dan Doughty. First of all, he was born in Ladysmith in 1933. He enlisted in the Air Force Reserves in 1952, and then received his commission through the Aviation Cadet Program in September 1853. Following that, he had a gazillion different assignments within the Air Force. Here's the amazing part. And then, as an RF-101 pilot with the 45th Tactical Reconnaissance Squadron of Misawa Air Base, Japan, he was forced to eject over North Vietnam while flying a duty assignment to Southeast Asia. On April 2nd, yesterday, 1966. Yesterday. He served, he was, I use the word served, and was a POW, prisoner of war, ruthlessly treated by the North Vietnamese for 2,509 days. Sink in. 2,509 days as a prisoner of war. Dan Doughty's awards and decorations, once again, I would take twice the time that Dave and I take if I read them all. But I would be remiss if I did not list the big ones. How many of you guys and gals and veterans know somebody that won a Silver Star? I do. Anybody else know anybody Silver Star winners? Dave, Silver Star winners? Dan Doughty has 2. That's the 3rd highest medal below Distinguished Service Cross and Medal 1. Got 2. 2 Legions of Merits. How many people in the audience know people or yourself with a Bronze Star? Show of hands. Dan Doughty has 3 of them with the dollar device. Purple Heart. Tell you what, this guy's on a roll. He's got 2 of them. 2 Purple Hearts. And so many air medals that I couldn't count them all. But I think there's 6 or 7. And the list of decorations that goes way on from that. So with great humility, unbelievable pride, I want to introduce Colonel Dan Doughty, United States Air Force.
Because now I have to think and recall and tell the story exactly as I told it the first time. So, as he mentioned, April 2nd, 1966, April 3rd today. How many remember exactly what you were doing 50 years ago today?
Dan, could you get closer to the microphone?
I might be able to do that. How many remember exactly what you were doing 50 years ago today? But it just so happens 50 years ago today was also Sunday. April 2nd and 3rd came on Saturday and Sunday of 1966. And on April the 3rd, I began my first full day as a prisoner in North Vietnam. It started out early in the morning, hiking up the side of a small mountain to a cave where I was kept for the next several days. Now, when I've been here before, I talked about just a chronology of my entire event. And since I've done that before, I thought today I would cover just in general the general prison system and how it worked in North Vietnam. If I get going too long and you get bored, somebody give me the hook, because sometimes when I get talking, I forget to stop. So if somebody wants to give me the hook, go ahead and do it. The day I was shot down, it really ruined a nice day, because I was cruising along a little over 600 miles an hour, enjoying the beautiful scenery over the countryside of North Vietnam. I came across the ridge of a hill, cleared it by about 100 feet, and the luckiest gunner in the world was sitting on the other side. How many have ever tried to shoot ducks with a .22 when they're flying by? Well, that's about what this guy did. I came over a ridge of hills, I cleared it by about 100 feet, going a little over 600 miles an hour, and he nailed me the instant I hit over the valley. And of course the airplane flew for about 5 seconds and then exploded, and I found myself coming down in the parachute. Fortunately, when the aircraft blew up, it pitched and went right straight up, so I gained considerable altitude. On the way down, they were shooting at me all the way down, and I hit the ground. I was determined I was going to hit the ground running. There was a sheer cliff, and I wanted to get around that into the jungle where I thought I might be able to hide out. There was a few militiamen coming, armed, probably 150 of them with their guns blazing, and I started to run. I had missed one little detail in my training. I'd never made a parachute jump before. You know, this is something brand new. And on the way down, I wanted to hit the ground running, so I unbuckled the chest strap and the leg straps, and they set in the harness. So when my feet hit the ground, I threw the harness and I started to run. But I still had on my helmet. I had on an oxygen mask that was attached to the parachute that I just threw off and ran away from. That snapped me flat on the ground, and I landed behind a great big boulder, almost as big as this table. And that, I think, saved my life, because they were shooting and the bullets were hitting that big rock, and I was hiding behind at that point because I had no place to go. And within 30 seconds, they were there and took me captive. I spent the first few days right in that area. They took me up the hill the next morning to a cave. There was a Russian newsman there, and he tried to interrogate me during that first day a little bit, slap me around a little bit. What he wanted was me to write a letter to my wife, so he guaranteed me he would get a letter out. The main thing they wanted to do was try to get a picture of me holding a pen, signing something. So I spent several days there before they started transporting me to Hanoi. I moved first to the southeast, getting further from Hanoi, on down to the Vietnamese coast, near the village of Dong Hoi. And there I spent a week. Up to this point, the treatment was pretty good. It wasn't any picnic, but I was getting fairly good food and getting plenty of water to drink and so on. But once I hit Dong Hoi, I was turned over to the regular army at that point, and things went to hell in a handbasket, as they would say. I stayed there for almost a week, and then started to trek north. From where I was shot down to Dong Hoi, walked most of that distance. Fortunately, they let me keep my boots. Many of the others that were captured, they took one of the first things they did was take their boots away. So I had my boots and was able to walk. We'd walk all night and then spend the day in another cave in a village someplace or whatever along the way. Always walking just at night. I was always blindfolded, but the guards, they got just as tired of walking as I did, and so the blindfold would pull down. And I'd flown over that area enough that I knew exactly where I was during the entire trip. Headed north, and took a couple of days. I got to the city of Vien, and that's where I ran into the first full-fledged interrogation. I spent a week in Vien, and it was probably the most horrible week anybody could imagine. After a couple of days of interrogation, day and night, the interrogator told me, you might as well tell us what we want to know, because I can make the dead man talk. And by the end of the next day, I started believing. It said I spent about a week there at Vien, and then they started the trek on Hanoi. It was 1 month after I was shot down before I arrived at the prison system in Hanoi. And I had my visions of a prison camp. My visions of a prison camp is what they had in World War II. Big compound with guys milling around, and I knew several guys that had been captured before me, looking forward to meeting them. And then I arrived in the Hanoi Hilton and find there's no one living around. Everybody's locked up in little cells. The Hanoi Hilton was a generic term for the big old prison, which was right in downtown Hanoi. And it was several different compounds in there. We had what they called New Guy Village. That's usually where the first ones come in. Were kept for a while. There was the Heartbreak Hotel. That was another early place where they kept. Heartbreak Hotel was a series of 10 cells. They were probably only about 5 feet wide. They had a concrete bunk on one side and a steel door. The concrete bunk had steel stocks built into it with a lever on the outside. So when you laid on the bunk, they put your legs in these steel locks and went outside and pushed the handle and locked your feet in place. I spent just a few days in there. Most of the time, I was in the interrogation room, and they would interrogate me day and night. Although there was no real brutal treatment at that point, the week had been, they kind of backed off then. Then moved to a camp that we called the zoo. And the zoo got its name early on from, they said it was a place where the animals were kept. Only in this zoo, the people were inside and the animals were out running loose. Most of us were in 1- and 2-man cells. The zoo had been a film studio for the French back in the early days. It had a swimming pool in the center of the courtyard, and the swimming pool had not been used for a swimming pool for years. It was used as a trash dump for it. The buildings that they used were just old administrative buildings, and they put brick partitions in them, bricked up the windows. The cell that I went to first was probably a 6 feet wide by 10 feet deep. Real high ceilings, and probably 9 or 10 foot high ceilings. And the bed was just a wooden pallet built up off the